Some shelters are not built for protection, but for containment. Some invitations are not offered in kindness, but in hunger. And some things do not haunt a place. They are the place, the soil, the stone, the silence that waits for you to speak your name. This is the sworn testimony of 6 travelers who sought refuge from a storm. They did not know that the walls that kept out the rain also kept in something older than prayer. Family, this is the Dread Codex. Draw near. The night is listening. My name is Samuel Thorne. For 15 years, I managed a team from an office in Manchester. I believed in logic, in spreadsheets, in the clean, sterile architecture of the modern world. What I am about to tell you was scraped together from the broken voices of my best team. Voices that still taste of clay when they speak of what they invited in. Their leader was Alistair Finch, a lay preacher, a man whose faith was as solid as the Yorkshire limestone. But faith is a key, and some doors should stay locked. They were returning from Edinburgh, packed into Alistair's Land Rover. Somewhere past the Pennines, the sky split open. A deluge that turned the world into a drowning cell. The sat-nav died. They took an exit marked only by a stone slab. The words Penance Cross were nearly scoured away by time. The road became a tunnel. Like elms, their branches twisted into archways that felt less like growth and more like architecture. The first marker was a small rough cross of flint bound with frayed black cord. A second appeared. Then a third. It was Micah, Alistair's friend from seminary, who spoke from the back. His voice was distant, as if listening to something else. "Sorrow stones," he said, not looking at them. "They don't mark where someone died. They mark where something was fed." No one had told him that. Through the slashing rain, they saw it. The inn. A 2-story Tudor building, its black timber bones sagging under the weight of centuries. A sign swung violently, the Penance Cross. The light above the door was a single, jaundiced eye. The landlord was Elias Vane. His hands were cold and dry. He took Alistair's cash, his gaze lingering on each of them. "The last room," he said. "Mind the 7th step. It echoes." Room 13. The air was frigid. It smelled of damp wool, beeswax, and beneath it something sweetly metallic. Old pennies. Spoiled honey. Here is the quiet, wrong moment. As the others argued about sleeping arrangements, Micah stood perfectly still by the window. He wasn't looking out. He was looking at his own reflection in the black glass. Slowly, deliberately, he raised his right hand and placed it flat against the pane. He held it. 5 seconds. 10. Then he leaned forward until his breath fogged the glass, and he whispered something too soft to hear. When he pulled back, his palm left a perfect damp print on the cold surface. He stared at it and gave a slow private nod, as if acknowledging an introduction. No one mentioned it. The unease was a cold stone in the gut, but the storm raged. They were too grateful for the walls. That night, the change began. Alistair woke to a sound. A soft, rhythmic tap-tap-tap, like a fingernail on wood. He found Micah in the corner, kneeling. He wasn't praying. He was gently, patiently, tapping his own forehead against the skirting board. Tap, tap, tap. In his outstretched hand, a fat black earthworm writhed. He brought it to his lips and bit. A soft, wet pop. Dark fluid traced his chin. He turned. His eyes were pools of polished jet, reflecting nothing. "It's kinder than the bread," Micah said, and his voice was a layered thing, a rasp of old parchment over a child's hum. Terror propelled them. They would leave at first light. But Micah became persuasive, horrifically, calmly persuasive. He knew things. He looked at Alistair and said, "Eleanor wears the locket. The one with the curl of hair. She thinks you don't know she opens it every Tuesday. She whispers to it. She calls it the quiet one. A secret. A private grief." He insisted they stay. When they refused, the courtesy sloughed away. Micah's face seemed to blur at the edges. His smile stretched. He gripped Alistair's wrist. His touch was like cold root. "The tithe is not yet paid," the chorus voice hissed. "The ground is thirsty. It remembers every name." They wrestled him, sobbing, into the rover. They found a church street. Jude's of the Weeping Stone. The vicar, Father Alden, met them on the steps. He took one look at Micah, and his face aged a decade. "I cannot help you," he whispered. "That is not a possession. A demon is a trespasser. This is a custodian. A thing woven into the land when the first stone was laid. It is older than the Christ we preach." He leaned closer. The Brothers of the Atonement, they didn't just bury the sinful here. They joined them. The last abbot said, his journal says he sought to become a living keystone to hold the horror at bay. Alden's eyes flickered. But the journal ends with a single line, in a different hand. The keystone learned to hunger. I don't know which side of the wall he ended up on. Hopeless, they returned to the inn. That night, the horror unfolded. Micah stood in the center of the room, and the many-voiced thing spoke. It told them of the brothers, how they believed sin could be transferred into the earth through ritual drowning in the clay beneath the foundation. Their breath became the damp in your walls, the voices crooned. Their prayers became the creak in your floor. The last brother said it sighed through Micah's grin. He is the house now. He is so lonely. He needs new lungs to breathe his psalms. The light died. An absolute swallowing black. In the dark, a new sound. A wet rhythmic squelch. Like a foot pulled from deep mud. Then a whisper, not in the room, but in the space behind their eyes. Confess. The air froze. The sweet rotten smell swelled. Micah's body levitated, his back arching until bones shrieked. The childish whisper twisted into a roar that vibrated in their teeth. You are the communion. It was then Father Alden returned. Not with holy water. With an old woman, Agnes Grey. She carried a pouch. Her eyes held not hope, but a grim, familiar resolve. As she stepped into the room, she didn't look at Micah. She looked at the ceiling beam above him. "Again," she said to the empty air, "you never learn when you're full." She scattered a powder. Salt, crushed belladonna, graveyard dirt, a spiraling pattern. Her chant was the sound of soil settling on a coffin lid. The thing inside Micah shrieked, a sound of geological fury. "This flesh is mine. The pact is in the soil." Agnes threw a handful of the black mixture. Where it struck, it burned like acid. Smoking welts. A howl that seemed to rise from beneath the floorboards. Micah collapsed. When he woke, he was himself. Terrified. Weeping. Remembering only the sensation of thick, cold clay filling his throat, and a single, clear thought that was not his own. "You will do." They fled at a gray dawn. Micah slept in the back. As they merged onto the motorway, Alistair glanced in the mirror. In the lane behind, standing perfectly still in the rain, was a figure in a tattered monk's habit. Its face, a featureless slab of wet clay. One long hand was raised. Not in blessing. In a slow, deliberate wave. Micah never returned. He left the church. He says on still nights he can taste soil on his tongue. And sometimes, in a pane of glass, his reflection is already smiling before he is. But the story does not end at the motorway. 3 months later, Alistair, alone in his Manchester flat. A storm brewed. The lights died. In the perfect silence, he heard it. The soft, wet tap-tap-tap from his kitchen. He walked numb to the doorway. There, on his clean kitchen tiles, was a single perfect footprint of dark, wet clay. And from the shadow of the pantry, a voice he knew, but younger, softer, wearier than Micah's ever was, whispered, "Alistair, he told you they buried the sinful. He didn't tell you they buried the saints first. The hungry ones, they prefer a clean soul. Thank you for bringing me such a fine meal. The tithe is transferred." It was then Alistair understood. The horror wasn't the inn. The horror was the delivery. Micah wasn't the victim. He was the vehicle. And the cargo, the ancient hungry thing that was brother said, was now here. This is the story of the Penance Cross Inn, Yorkshire. It is not a ghost story. It is a transaction. The most profound evil does not defy the divine. It mimics its economy. It turns sacrifice into currency and faith into a receipt written in soil and stolen breath. So listen closely, family. If you are ever caught in a storm and see an old light burning where no light should be, if a friend studies his reflection a moment too long, if you hear an offer of shelter in a voice that tastes of earth and echo, Drive until the tank runs dry. Some sanctuaries are not refuges. They are distribution centers. And some friendships are not bonds, but binding agreements. If you have a story that has taken root inside you, send it to contact.thedreadcodex@gmail.com. Your truth becomes our tale. Your likes and comments keep these stories alive. Until next time, may your road be clear. May your house be your own. Good night.